I don't know the context, I guess, of why Nina was she making a joke like we deserve more in terms of the food substance of what you're providing to the meeting?
No.
Or is it more like a big fat donut is what they're offering?
From this meeting with the Dem establishment,
yeah,
and all that they could say that they actually got was donuts and water. Like, that was the only thing that the DNC was willing to offer the progressive wing of the party.
Man, every day I wake up and I'm just ready to be out of that shit.
Yeah. I thought you were doing like a every day I wake up
in my makeup.
Hey, look, it's give us policy, but give us donuts too.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think anyone's actually complaining about getting donuts at a meeting. It's just, if that's the only thing. I mean, it's such a great metaphor, too, right? That, you know, what the Democrats are willing to offer progressives is this completely empty calorie, like, not good for you sort of substance, and that's supposed to win you over.
Well, and that they're proudly displaying that now on social media that, yep, I'm the guys that are saying, F off, we needed you before and we still lost, but now I'm saying we don't need you. I mean, that's kind of what that symbol means to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever.
And like donuts, they have nothing in the middle.
I was going to say, that's so fitting for them. But, all this corn cob, this donut, this food identity, it's like, it's taking it back to that you are what you eat mentality or some shit.
No, it's like Chick-fil-A. The only way Americans understand politics is through food that's bad for you.
You are listening to the Liquid Flannel Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Chuck Williams. Joining me in Nebraska is Brendan Williams. Brendan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good until the nukes start flying.
Hey, man, just open that umbrella. Everything will be fine.
Duck and cover.
Duck and cover, buddy.
Duck and cover. That's right, kids. Duck and cover. And joining us in Arlington, Texas is the great Matthew Hodges. Matt, how's it going, dude?
I am happier than I've ever been starting a podcast episode because I've been using donut as a sort of a light insult for idiot for years.
Really?
And so to have all of these like hashtag still with her, hashtag the resistance, like liberals on Twitter putting literal donuts in their Twitter handles, it's delightful. This is candy for my soul. It's
kind of funny you mentioned that you use donut as a light insult for years. I've been using donut as a light breakfast for years. So, just isn't it ironic? Anyways, and as you all know, we bring on great guests all the time. And Matt, this is no exception. Why don't you tell the audience who we've got this week?
Yeah, absolutely. He's a writer and illustrator and activist. His work has been published in the Nib and the New Yorker. He's also a card-carrying member of the DSA, and he's part of the New York City Media Working Group for the DSA, and we're delighted to welcome John Leavitt to the show. John, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Keeping fit, sleeping well, getting ready for the fire times. It's pretty good.
Just make
stocking
sure you
up on ammunition, bottled water.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just like for Tuesdays. So, Is there something else going on?
We'll figure it out. I don't know.
Yeah, so I think our first topic is going to be talking to John about some of the work he's doing, particularly with messaging for the Democratic Socialists. And everyone knows that one of my pet projects is to talk about the kind of the progressive split, and he has some great thoughts on that too. So I want to talk about that.
Absolutely.
And, I think we've got to touch on the insanity that is the North Korean situation. And, I hear a lot of people saying, if you just voted for Hillary, this would have been fine.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. But you know who things would still not be fine for? That would be Paul Manafort. And it just seems like the whole world is coming down on him this week as well. So it seems like we've got a full slate of topics that we can dive into. So without further ado, let's jump right in.
What is the difference between a Democrat and a socialist? I used to think there was a big difference. What do you think it is?
the difference between
a Democrat like Hillary Clinton and a socialist like Bernie Sanders.
What's the difference between being a Democrat and being a Republican?
Well, what's the bigger difference? What's the big difference between a Democrat and a socialist? You're the chairman of the Democratic Party. Tell me the difference between you and a socialist.
The relevant debate that we'll be having over the course of this campaign is what's the difference between a Democrat and a Republican?
Well, all right. We're so excited to talk to John Leavitt here. I have to admit, when Matthew first contacted me, I was like, oh, that's a big podcast get. Oh, wait. Which John is this? Yeah. I can't keep them all straight.
John
There's
Leavitt,
so many
the guy
from
he did the voice for The Critic.
I was like, man, we're moving up fast, dude. I'm not ready for all this fame.
No, so Brendan, your question for John was, as John Leavitt, do you get pissed off when people confuse you for John Leavitt, the Pod Save America guy?
Yes, immensely, mostly because he won't have me on his podcast, the coward. And when he has his personal podcast, like Love It or Leave It, I just thought people naturally just thought I was on it, which annoyed me because I could murder him very easily in a debate. Just trap me in a room with him for about 5 minutes and I'll turn him into a Bolshevik. But like the biggest problem is I do listen to Pod Save America, and whenever he talks, I cannot tell our voices apart, so I'm worried that there's an orphan black situation going on.
Yeah, so, I think you might. I mean, have you ever been in the same room as John Leavitt? Because you might actually be him and just be living a dual life. It's like a schizophrenia thing. Like, you never know. Multiple personalities.
I mean, I know that we've never had John Leavitt and John Leavitt on the show at the same time.
Yeah.
I do miss a lot of sleep. And I do black out a lot, and I usually thought that was just gin.
Oh, dude. I think you might need to consult a physician. Get a sleep test done.
Oh man, yeah. So John, now that we've sorted out
all jokes aside
which John you are, no, I've been really curious about this work that you're doing with the New York City DSA's media working group, because obviously a major challenge that's facing leftist organizers in the country right now is, how do you message? How do you get people's attention? How do we overcome the sort of like baby boomer holdover Cold War knee-jerk reaction against anything that sounds like socialism, anything that sounds like communism? What are you guys doing to address that?
Well, what we're doing right now in particular is focusing on messages that are very positive and that are very materialist. That is, they're based on things that actually impact people's lives. The Healthcare for All, Medicare for All campaign is all nice, big red banners. Healthcare is a human right. Medicare for all. Mm-hmm. In our literature that we're helping write, or I'm helping write some of it, we are focusing on, maybe America already has a couple socialist ideals, or what even is socialism? Doesn't everybody like
Sure.
roads and firemen and the police to a certain extent, or libraries?
Well, actually, not everybody does like those.
The idea.
We were talking about Rand Paul earlier, but
you know
Rand Paul
what?
doesn't
You know
like it
what
when people are
socialism?
alive, so that's another thing.
Socialism is giving the worst performing team the top draft pick.
Overwhelming goal is to create a positive base, a positive message, a message that people deserve better than what they're currently getting, and then we can help give them that, or help get them to a point where they can take it for themselves.
Very cool.
Right, and I think it's a great contrast to corporatism, which I think a lot of people have an inherent dislike of, kind of the corporatism, where it's like, hey, who cares about people? Who cares about, justice? As long as you're making money, that's all that really matters. And I think
the way to validate all of our social programs is whether or not they're good for the public fisc, whether or not they're profitable.
Mm-hmm.
And the Republicans run explicitly on that message, and the Democrats kind of run implicitly on that message, but it's actually not a good message.
Right.
And some of the stuff we're doing, particularly with community outreach, which we're going to start doing more of now that we're post-convention, now that we are at 25,000 members, we're no longer just starting to set up. We can start to expand into communities and get into a feeling of community groups and neighborhoods and sharings and people helping people. Not only just us helping each other as DSA members, but also going out into communities and helping people. Rural and smaller groups, I feel, are in an ideal position to do social interventionalist work, whereas they go around and they start diaper drives, or they help fund food banks, and they step in and say, we are part of your community, we are here to help you.
Right. I mean, that's going back to the basics of where politics started was this group can help you in your day-to-day life. And that's a place where the Democrats have fallen down on messaging, because every policy they put forward is this super wonky, you need to read like a 15-page manuscript to understand why this policy might be good for your family. Whereas opposition parties can just say, we're going to get rid of the immigrants or something like that. If the DSA is out there saying like, look, when I was in trouble, they were providing cheap dental care for my family. That resonates. That's a great message for people.
And critics say like, oh, that's just bribery. You're just bribing people to vote for you. And I'd say it's called giving a damn about the people you live with. Like, that's such a sociopathic way of viewing politics. But
they're like, you're such an opportunist.
But
I'm trying to help people.
It's also that people are starving for change out there. The system just isn't working, and change has won the last 3 presidential elections.
Yeah, very true.
Right. I mean, change is such a strong message that people would vote for Donald Trump, even though he clearly was not qualified.
Well, it is change. It's just a horrifying, nightmarish change that affects us every day with new, fresh hell.
Yep. Right. Absolutely. I wake up every morning to about 8 Donald Trump tweets, and I'm like, that's changing.
Right.
Things are changing.
And, like Matt was implying, a long time people have been so scared of socialism and things like that, because it's just like, hey, you don't even talk about that because it's just a non-starter. Don't even say that word. But in a world where reality TV stars and Kid Rock can run for political office, maybe it's not so crazy to think that someone who calls himself a socialist isn't just doomed from the get-go. Maybe they have a shot to get their voice heard.
Well, and it's also in a world where we've got, there will be one think piece one week that's like, why millennials can't afford to purchase a house or, save for college for their kids. And it's because the job situation is terrible for young people. It's because everyone's drowning in debt. And then the next week, like, the same mouthpiece will publish an article that's like, why do millennials hate capitalism so much?
Well, yeah, and it's, quite frankly, it's scary out there. I don't think people quite realize, or rather people in the sort of well-insulated media class realize that we're still going through the worst economy since the 1930s. The fact that there hasn't been some sort of mass uprising is really shocking to me.
Well, but how can the economy be bad when the the stock market's just sky high?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what. But there's a difference between corporate profits and actual like people's wages, and things like that. And
absolutely.
Again, neither political party, the Democrats or the Republicans right now, are really talking about that in a meaningful way.
And I have to say, like, my experience going, I do a lot of happy hour events for the groups, particularly the LGBTQ happy hours, which are great, by the way. We're trying to plan more of them. And there you do direct canvassing in the bar. Like, you go out and you talk to people and you try to sign them up. And I gotta say, the actual experience of saying, like, oh, well, we're the Democratic Socialists, this is what we believe in, this is what we're for here, have a pamphlet, is more like interested curiosity of like, oh, this might be this new thing. People aren't as hostile to even just the word as I think people think. I mean, this may change because I live in, New York, which is full of fags and commies. But
right.
I think that really is the reaction. Very few people have like this visceral reaction to the word. I mean, only one drunk guy thought we were Nazis. That's pretty cool, right?
Right.
Well, and I think we have to give credit to, Bernie Sanders for opening that door and, appealing not just to people who are urban. I think a lot of the reason that he was so popular. You know, when we went to a rally in Nebraska with Bernie, and there was thousands and thousands of people there.
Yep.
So I think people are coming around, and especially when you look at the younger people, the older people, you know, maybe there's nothing you can do to get negative connotations with just the term socialism, you know, out of their mind, because it was just ingrained to them, indoctrinated into them since birth, basically, in America.
There are a lot of old dormant activists from the Students for a Democratic Society out there, and they're sitting there and they're waiting for someone to say it's okay to say socialism again.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
That's super encouraging. Brendan, you reminded me of another question I had for John, which was, so one of the things that people say ruined Bernie's chances in the primaries and possibly even in the general, if he had gotten that far, was that his message was one of economic populism, and possibly to the detriment of speaking to underserved classes, underprivileged minorities in this country. And I know that there was some good forward motion at the DSA National Convention on that, but I wonder what your thoughts are on what the DSA can be doing and what they are doing and what they should be doing in terms of making sure that it really is a party for everyone, and not just the way like Neera Tanden wants to paint the movement as being all, white privileged Bernie bros.
Right. This has been a plank and a very important part of outreach and media group since I first joined 9 months ago. It's been inside every conversation we've ever had on a larger level, which is we cannot be the party of downwardly mobile white millennials, or we'll fail. And part of the way of doing that is by, at the convention, we voted, and I want to say unanimously, not one dissenting vote, for the creation of an Afro-Socialist and People of Color caucus that would directly center the needs of disadvantaged and minority communities, and in particularly binding in New York, for example, the Uptown Bronx Manhattan chapter is binding its cause together with Black Lives Matter, because we have they have the visibility, but we have the numbers, and we're working with them together. And in addition to that, there are plans to help, like with the interventionalist, expand out into minority communities to do direct social work.
Nice.
That's fascinating, and combined with what you said about doing more rural outreach, I could see that being incredibly effective.
And as we've said over and over again, and I think this is the thing that makes me really believe that DSA has a chance and is really inspiring, is that they have made labor the lodestone of all decisions. At the end of the day, everything has to come back to labor and the workers. Are they being served? Are they being supported? And, for example, we helped arrange the CW strike for, I believe it was AT&T workers.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And people who work at AT&T stores in New York City are overwhelmingly black, overwhelmingly young.
Yep.
And we helped, through their union, create a huge solidarity strike throughout the city. We closed stores down for an entire weekend, and it was incredibly inspiring to see an entire generation of young African-American kids start to learn about solidarity, about union leadership, about how to demand a living wage, how to demand a job that you need. And they were doing it themselves. We were helping and we were providing support, but it was encouraging them to take the reins.
That's amazing.
Empowering.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and there's no downside because AT&T is just not very popular.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah, that's a good target.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, if you want to go after someone, go after a telecom. God.
Yeah.
Telecom or a cable company. Absolutely.
Verizon.
And
well, even the Democrats are getting on board with that one. So I think that plank is definitely a solid one.
Yeah, and we also created the Labor Caucus as well in order to reorient labor as it. I actually helped design the logo for the Village Voice Union, because there are these low-level plans to create a, maybe I shouldn't say this out loud, larger media union within the city. And it's the
Breaking
idea that
news.
if you bring in workers, you're going to bring in all people because everybody works, because none of us are capitalists, because none of us have capital.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I mean, I think the failure of the messaging so far has been that it seems to come from kind of like a top-down perspective, where we're talking about, we need to adjust like economic conditions, and there's not enough of that sort of grassroots or like ground movement. There aren't boots on the ground convincing people like my coworkers at the restaurant who are overwhelmingly Latino, that this would be a good party for you too. It does stand for you. It's speaking to you don't have any power over your boss, and what this movement can do for you is give you that.
Yes, precisely. Like, that is the idea. And if you keep doing that, you will eventually reach everyone, which is great. And the goal of allowing workers to have more control and more autonomy, ideally to own all of the, or one might say seize, all of their workplaces.
Did you make that up? That's a really good phrase. It seems like that should take off.
Yeah, I don't know. It just came to me. So yeah, it's like this is... All of these things are extremely long-term goals, but if you're like me and you've become borderline evangelical about it, it's like, well, this is just going to be the task of a lifetime.
Yep. You just have to commit to dedicating the rest of your life to this. So, yeah.
Yeah, well,
and I think that's okay. I mean, the left does need evangelists. It seems like the left hasn't had that in a very long time. It was these sort of isolated movements, and so what DSA is doing is pulling together all of these threads that have existed for a long time and putting them under one banner, and coordinating messaging, and that's great.
And on that point, everything being under one banner, I wanted to talk about the progressive split.
Yes, please do.
Well, and I mean, you guys know that this is a thing that I've been railing on for like the last couple of weeks, so I'm definitely interested in this perspective.
I hope they can stay together for the children.
Well, and I love Dunkin' Donuts, so let's dunk on some donuts right now, you guys.
right.
Yeah, so where are you at on donuts there, John?
I like them glazed. No, that's a bad joke.
Krispy Kreme or...
Yeah, what's the donut sitch
That's
like in New York City?
Please cut everything 5 minutes before this. Where do I stand? Ask me another question that doesn't end in a bad joke.
Right.
Time to make the donuts. Dunkin' Donuts are always fresh. I made the donuts. We make them at least twice every day. Time to make the donuts. Not a few kinds, like supermarket. Made the donuts. Time to make the donuts. But up to 52 varieties. The donuts. Time to make the donuts. I made the donuts. Dunkin' Donuts, up to 52 varieties, fresh day and night. No supermarket can say that.
Yeah, so John, what's your opinion of these people who are unironically labeling themselves donuts when the whole thing started because progressives are really pissed that the Democratic establishment won't listen to them, and what they offer them is this like low-calorie food?
Well, they talk about identity politics, and I don't want to smash identity politics. Identity politics gave us the civil rights movement and gay rights, but they are one weapon in our arsenal. And I should have said tool shed. I always go marital. God, I'm a violent person.
What's on your mind,
It's
John?
the times, man. It's the times.
You're feeling
it's
it.
the times.
In the air.
But, if you want to talk people who are completely obsessed with their made-up identity, it's these sort of centrist Democrats whom all they have is the idea that they are the most moral, most morally upright people. They deserve everything the best. They're
the most civil. They're super polite.
The most money, usually. They're really into money. And it's...
The best president that they ever had was Jed Bartlett, and he was actually a good president.
And it's just...
or real.
completely hollow, and it's doesn't make sense because they have no ideology. They aren't for anything really other than a vague niceness. They're
right.
Now hold on, I'll stop you there because I don't think it's that they have no ideology.
Well, they have
I think
neoliberalism.
It's that they're not willing to state what their ideology is.
Their ideology is the market should rule everything, but also it's okay if gay people get married.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is, there are a lot of people still in the Democratic Party who are really hungering, like I said before, hungering for change, but also hungering for that old progressive spirit of the party, which wasn't necessarily socialist, but was sort of, call it another name kind of socialism, like the New Deal Band-Aid stuff.
Yeah.
Which,
right.
I started out that way. I'm being slowly pushed more and more left. I'm not going to say private property shouldn't be a thing, but I will subscribe to the newsletter.
Oh, I will. I'll say that private property shouldn't be a thing.
But, in the split I feel between, dyed-in-the-wool card-carrying socialists, and, people who can be reached on the Democratic Party. I think we should be civil to them. A lot of them are old activists from the 60s. A lot of them have fallen out of politics out of disgust. A lot of them want something optimistic and good. And I think, progressive left liberalism will be our bridge to them. And, way out anarchist space communism is our bridge to the future. And gay anarchist space communism. We will unify with the space comrades. And, I see DSA as this bridge between that. we need to get all the people from the past, pull them over, and then we need to push forward into the future because this is, it's only going to get hotter and weirder in this planet. So this is literally a fight to save the world.
So not to invoke what is sometimes considered a really ugly phrase, but what you're talking about is being a vanguard. You're talking about being a messaging vanguard.
In a sense, yes. I do believe that there is a center that is tenable. It's way to the left of the current centralist Dems. I would consider progressive left liberalism, New Dealism, to be a center.
Right. Well, and if the goal is centrism, you can't start at centrism and then work with the far right to get to centrism.
No,
that's just not possible.
Yeah, no, you're correct. You should always keep utopia in your mind because that is the thing you're constantly striving for. We're constantly working toward the impossible perfect future where everything is wonderful and lovely. But then that means we can compromise.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I think Brendan's point also is that, what we see in the general political dialogue is we're trying to get to zero, but you can't average 0 and 4 and still end up at 0.
Right.
You're still going to be on the right side of that number line.
Yeah.
So you have to do things that sound quite revolutionary and sound quite radical, but I always maintain I'm trying to bring everything to the center that is actually not very radical, because what I have in my head and what my dreams for the future, those actually are radical, and I'm willing to fight to get us there.
Mm-hmm. It's shifting the Overton window back to the left where it ought to be to get someplace closer to the center.
Exactly.
Well, and Republicans have been working on this for a long time, and I mean Trump now is just blatantly saying, things like, well, my opening bid, you make, it's art of the deal. You make your opening bid so insane that then when you walk it back a tiny bit, they say well, at least it isn't as crazy as the first thing he said. So let's just go with it.
Yep.
And it's worked pretty well for them so far. So it's pretty shocking that it's taken so long for
Democrats
the other side
to catch on,
to wake up and to kind of figure out
oh, these are the rules we're playing by.
Right. You can't come to the conversation, pre-compromising yourself if that's where your opening bid is going to be.
Right.
And it all just comes down to a lot of it is the influence of money in politics, and I cannot believe how little politicians can be paid off by. Like,
Oh, sure.
you see some of these bribes, like, for essentially bribes for votes. It's less than I paid for my house. I mean, come on.
Dude, in Nebraska, you can pay off a politician with a bologna sandwich lunch. You know, like they will be in your pocket.
You know, it's like the larger thing is like, we know we can create a kind of quasi-welfare state in America. What we don't know how to do is either A, expand it, or B, make sure it isn't immediately destroyed.
Right.
Well,
and I think that comes back to what we started talking about with the donuts, right? Is that because the corporatist Democrats have lived in that world for so long, they think that when they have a meeting with some progressives, they can just say like, hey, here's some free donuts, and we'll just kind of pretend to listen to you and think, you know, hey, we nailed it again. You know, we gave them some time. We listened politely. We threw some donuts in their face.
Their votes are guaranteed now.
Problem solved.
Yep.
And it's just perfect that they're labeling themselves with the perfect image of empty calories that are bad for you, but kind of sound good and seem good unless you think about it too hard.
Let them eat cake.
I mean, you couldn't have come up with a better label if you were trying to pin a negative label on them, and they're just owning it themselves.
Yeah. We're good at that. Damn it.
But I guess my question is, you know, what is that end goal? Is it pulling Democrats to the left? Is it trying to start, you know, a new, you know, third political party or some sort of independent party, you know, to supplant them? You know, what does success look like?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. Like, I mean, to what extent does the DSA want to work within the existing system? And to what extent is it going to try to be truly revolutionary? And if it's going to be revolutionary, is that realistic? Like, where does pragmatism play a role?
Well, I always believe you should be practical and insist on the impossible. But working with the Democratic Party was a really big bone of contention at this year's convention. I would describe it as saying there's not a will to completely leave. And personally, I don't believe they should, just because the Democrats have an amazing organizational pre-existing structure that should be used and shouldn't be thrown away. But we're definitely looking at the door and thinking like, we'll work with you, but we're not going to rely on you. We're going to sit down. Everyone's going to go after this convention. Everyone goes back to their home chapters, and you start building socialism at home.
And certainly we're not going to just sit here quietly and continue to vote for these candidates that we don't feel represent the best interest of the country or what we believe in.
There are some people who say, like, you shouldn't do electoral politics at all. You should only do worker-focused politics or labor-focused politics or whatever. But I don't believe that. Half the people who joined up were because of electoral politics. But I think, you know, like we're doing in New York, we're only focused on city council level and below, basically. Like, start small, start grassroots, get your people in, run them as independents if you can. If you can get some Democrats on your side who will be we had a city council member whose endorsement, who coveted our endorsement, and we rejected her because we were pretty sure she was just going to use it as a little tag on her website and then never address our concerns ever again. We want people who will actively run as either DSA members or as socialists, even if they are registered Dems, or as independents. And, you know, the goal, my goal would be to annoy the Democrats so much that they're forced to move left, and we're sort of seeing that with some of the other, like, opportunists like Cory Booker. Like, they know what side of they know what side their bread is buttered on. And the idea is to make us everywhere. That side and not corporate money.
Yeah, it's hard because I think they're addicted to that money. I mean, that's a challenge. So
it's not like they win elections, so
exactly.
It goes to show Hillary Clinton had so much money in the last election, and it turns out
John Ossoff.
Money isn't everything if people don't actually feel motivated,
and
inspired.
I'd mentioned it. I was like, you know, her campaign outspent Trump 10-1 on advertising, and someone had said, well, but Trump got all that free advertising, you know, from the media that he didn't even have to pay for. And I'm like, I know that we all adhered to any press is good press sort of thing, but if I was paying for press, it wouldn't be the messages that the press was giving out for Donald Trump, so it wasn't good press, but yeah, I don't know.
Well, and actually, Chuck, thanks for bringing it up, because I think to wrap up this segment, John, you were saying before we started recording, you were talking about the ways that the DSA is trying to catch attention. And I think that's really important when we're talking about a media that isn't necessarily an enemy, but they're also not necessarily an ally. They're more of a tool that kind of needs to be manipulated if you want this message to get out. And you had some really interesting thoughts on what DSA is trying to do to make that happen.
Well, let me first say that I am helping form a communications division within DSA NYC, because since
with the Scaramucci, I assume is going to be.
Yes,
he's available.
He's actually my Coke dealer, so that'll be cool.
Right.
With the idea is that we've been getting so much press recently. Like, I tried to keep track, and I've been annoying my Twitter followers by just tweeting every time there was a new article about the convention, and it's boggling, actually. The CNN ran a really good, really in-depth report with one of our organizers during the convention that really shocked me, because I was expecting to be covered by, like Alternet or The Intercept or whatever. Not that they're bad, but they're not mainstream.
Right.
They're not mainstream publications.
TYT,
and,
Well, and even CNN, you might be suspicious that they were going to cover you as, like, look at these wing nuts.
Look at these wing nuts. Yeah. And
these old
Occupy
throwbacks.
The photo they used is a photo I'm in, but I'm clearly checking my phone.
Right.
So that's great.
They did that on purpose.
But no, it was a really good, respectful, in-depth interview. And we're trying to working in creating internal communications, because New York City is the heart of the American news industry, that it would essentially be a national communications industry. So we can liaison with the press better and identify spokespeople within our organization that can talk to us, drill people at direct actions on talking points in case they get contacted by a journalist, which is really important for public persona image. But during the convention and immediately after her, we've had this explosion in press coverage, and most of it pretty positive, which makes me think the tone the media is taking on us has shifted from look at these idiotic children to this is a curious new thing that's happening.
Right.
But when it comes to representing DSA in the media, there are certain things I always harp on. I'm constantly yelling at our Instagram person to have less white people on there and less young people, because we do have a white guy image problem, and as I said before, we are working to address it. But when it comes to things like marches and rallies, I have developed this philosophy of protest aesthetics. That is really interesting. I haven't really developed it. It comes from practical knowledge.
Well, and you were you've done some like theater and performance in the past, so I could see that possibly playing a role.
It's like
in your
stage
aesthetic.
blocking.
I just think it's because I'm gay.
Levels.
Right.
But before every mass protest, like before Pride, before Labor Day, we had something called the Secret Sign Making Club. And we would roll plastic tarp out on someone's floor. We would cut up all our old Amazon boxes. That's right, we will use the tools of the oppressor against us.
That's right.
We would paint these cardboard panels bright red, toss them over, paint them again, and then just write slogans in them, or just write, giant roses in white and red. And they looked really good, but they didn't look like you just paid $7,000 at a laser jet to get a whole bunch of posters printed. Like, they were big and sturdy, but they were clearly handmade, but also someone had clearly cared enough about them to make them look really good. And I think that broadcasts a different kind of power. I think that broadcasts something called crafting power, which means this is so important to us that we took a lot of time to create it.
Yeah, it doesn't feel institutional. This is it screams grassroots.
Yeah, it's like, we're doing this because we want to. We clearly made this by hand, And we actually have a lovely craft night for New York City Media Working where people just knit or crochet together roses. Because the roses we find are really good as giant pins when you're in a crowd, because like with the giant red signs, it reads a lot better from a news camera. So during May Day, when we were out and, you know, fighting with the IWW, who always like take over Union Square and pretend they're a thing that exists,
Right.
I don't like them. Suddenly, rather than
Tell us how you really feel.
than seeing like their feeble signs that were all mass-produced and printed, you just saw this sea of red, just like red roses, red signs, red slogans, red banners, all of it.
Red wine.
And after that is when we started saying, okay, if you're going to come to a public DSA event, you have to dress themed.
Oh man, I heard that. I heard the alt-right is doing that with Andrew Anglin, telling them how to dress up. Did you hear that? That was like today. I'm sorry, guys. This is kind of non sequitur.
No, go for it.
What are their rival
What's the
gang
alt-right?
We're
colors?
talking
Yeah,
about
what's the
media
alt-right
messaging
uniform?
here.
So Andrew Anglin had put out a whole thing, I guess, in the Daily Stormer about how you need to dress for this. I guess they're having some sort of convention.
Oh, that's right.
or
They
something
wanted to make
coming up.
Nazism look sexy.
Right, and he was like, you know, loose t-shirts are out. That's totally bad.
Yeah, don't wear your Naruto
Right.
like rayon, like ill-fitting like button up.
You need to wear a fitted tee that, you know, the sleeve goes down to mid bicep, and, you know, the end of the t-shirt doesn't go or goes down no lower than the base of your member, he said. But like literally saying how to wear your shirt, how to wear your pants and everything, because he's afraid it's going to be a bunch of gamers coming out of the basements and, you know, being exposed to the sun for the first time.
These
or
are good
something.
memes,
I'm actually
guys.
looking
He said-
forward to that completely backfiring on them because like, you know, Chan kids wearing fitted clothes.
Yeah.
That sounds hilarious to me.
Well,
It's gonna be
he's like, you
dogs
guys.
on Thunder shirt.
Right, right. He said, "You guys, we have to get in the gym." Like he literally was like, "You guys got to start getting in the gym to represent us and stuff."
Yeah,
So
somebody tell Trump.
just don't be that way with the DSA, you know.
Yeah, no, we're just saying like, please wear red.
Okay,
yeah.
but it can be a red halter top or, you know, a
Yeah,
red
whatever.
anything, right?
Actually,
Okay.
it's a very hat-based organization, so we find like when we're currently brainstorming
Red
more
mega hat.
merchandise because people are starved for merchandise, it seems like, at least within
Yeah,
the
exactly.
organization. So
Mhm.
we're already putting out calls for things like scarves or bandanas or something you can take off if things get sketchy, basically.
I think a scarf would be great.
Sure.
Actually,
Like, you know, if the black shirt show up.
reversible hats that turn into like a black balaclava.
Yeah.
right.
I
You know.
remember for a long time I was seeing a lot of like red balaclavas out there. I'm like, yeah, I get it, because if shit goes down, you can take that off and put it in your pocket.
Right.
Sure.
I think like a soccer style scarf with the roses on each end.
Soccer
Man,
star
I'm already,
scarf. Actually, someone's been floating around a bandana idea, and I have an article coming out soon about the working class origins of seersucker. Yeah, I was a fashion
I'm not
major.
familiar.
That doesn't sound
Right.
that comfortable, really.
It's incredibly comfortable, and I was just like,
No, it's great. It's a great
and I was like,
fabric.
I would just love it if the Southern Caucus like adopted red seersucker, like just tying it around their necks like a neckerchief.
Like some Fred from Scooby-Doo style.
Yeah.
Or some Don Knotts style. Oh,
yeah, except
dude.
in favor of seizing the means of production.
A Boy Scout neckerchief.
Fred was a
style.
capitalist, man. He's not an ally.
We got to do that.
I'm on the fence.
What?
No one is unconvertible.
That's right.
That's a good note actually to take a break because we absolutely have to take a break now.
Okay. Sounds good.
Dum-dum. There was a turtle by the name of Bert, and Bert the turtle was very alert. When danger threatened him, he never got hurt. He knew just what to do. He'd duck and cover, duck and cover.
He did what we all must learn to do. You
And you
and you
and you, duck and cover.
So while the Democrats are fighting amongst themselves about
donuts. Who gets the glaze?
Right. What donut flavor is the best?
Sprinkles.
The Republicans are just busy like ramping up the rhetoric, literally about nuclear war.
Hey man, everyone's getting that glaze, that nuclear glaze, you know.
Well, nuclear war is very retro, and retro is really hip right now.
Seriously.
Well, I think
it's just a phase we're going
the
through.
best take
that nuclear
on
phase.
Twitter in the last couple of days was someone saying, millennials are complaining about we don't have housing or jobs, and boomers say like, yeah, but we had to live under the threat of constant nuclear war. And millennial says, "Hold my avocado."
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. Well, you got to get that nuclear threat street cred. It really helps.
That's right. I can't even get intimate with people anymore because you can't hug someone with nuclear arms. So.
And I hate comparing all politics to Game of Thrones, but I mean, Trump makes it so hard to resist when he's literally out there like spouting like Game of Thrones-esque war rhetoric about fury and fire and
fury.
Blood.
Right.
It's like, what are you doing?
The likes of which the world has never seen before.
But he's the Mad King. I mean, we don't even know that character really on Game of Thrones.
Well, yeah, but it's funny when someone like Trump can cause someone that you would normally not even like or agree with to say something that you find okay. I mean, North Korea today is like, yeah, Trump is crazy and unhinged, and it's like, you're not wrong. Right. The reason you know that, I'm going to question. I mean, it seems like takes one to know one, right. But you are speaking truth, yes.
Yeah, they criticized him for golfing too much today.
Yeah.
They were like, if he's taking this crisis seriously, like he says, why is he out in the golf course? It's like, well, that's a good point, North Korea.
Yeah.
Well, I guess even a stopped, stapled to the wall, state-supplied clock is right once a day.
Seriously. And when it's right, it's the very best right.
Right. But I mean, I'm so disappointed in Trump because I've long said if anyone could connect with Kim Jong-un on a personal level,
aside from Dennis Rodman.
I mean, I think, Trump probably, there's probably pictures of Trump hanging out with Dennis.
Oh, there
Rodman.
are.
Sure
there are. They were all over the internet.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Which leads me to my opinion, Dennis Rodman, MI-15 mole?
He could be the secret to world peace, you guys.
Oh, gosh.
Dennis Rodman's playing the long game. He's been working on this for a long time.
Well, we know that Trump hasn't appointed, any ambassadors, so why not Dennis Rodman to North Korea? He already has a good personal relationship.
I thought that he... wait, never mind. I was like, Callista Gingrich, isn't she like an ambassador
to the Vatican
or something? But,
Which, okay, I don't know how I know this, but I have Vatican insider gossip. Apparently they find that insulting to the point of trying to, not making any trips to the U.S. at all, ever. And not letting her see anyone important. Like they're basically putting her in the closet.
I will say, just to put this in context, it's better than past centuries where if the Vatican got pissed, they literally came and killed everybody and took over your country.
That is true. Not a whole lot of... the Swiss guards are less in number these days.
Oh, but such great outfits.
Yeah, it's like orange and blue... stripes, yeah, those things.
They look like the guys who would be standing outside of a circus tent, checking people's bags.
It's you bamboozle the enemy on the battlefield with your ostentatious fashions, and that's how you win. That's how you get the
dazzle them with glamour.
Yeah, it's that dazzle camouflage that they use in World War I, where they painted the ships all crazy colors.
They just put all their points into charisma.
Right. America's Next Top General and stuff. It's like this fashion.
Yeah, so I guess our philosophy is we're all gonna die, but we've got to laugh about it. I mean, what are you gonna do other than laugh about it?
Yeah, at least it's gonna be the most hilarious nuclear apocalypse ever.
Do we have to die? I mean, It seems like it's just going to be like the West Coast has to die.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I'm
Guam.
safe. You guys are fucked.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're getting better all the time with those missiles. It's just only a matter of time.
Yeah, like they were able to like slingshot another school bus slightly farther away. I mean, come on. The NYPD has a bigger budget than the North Korea military.
Right. But,
I wouldn't be surprised
thank God they don't have
the
nukes yet.
I wouldn't be surprised to know that the NYPD has tactical nukes also.
Right.
Yeah, but we tend to shove them up young black kids.
Yeah, seriously. and we thank you. No,
which is actually going to happen if they nuke the West Coast. Just,
right.
To bring it back around.
They're going to take it out on low-level drug dealers in America. No, the whole thing is neither one of these guys can back down their rhetoric, and I don't necessarily see this ever actually being a thing. So I just keep blocking it out in my head like, this isn't going to happen. This can't happen. So
yeah, I mean, I definitely was on the like, well, this is just rhetoric, and it's it's not actually a realistic side, but when you get Trump in there,
right.
It's hard not to think like, well.
And the weird thing is that knowing the way Trump thinks, he probably thinks that North Korea would be an easy victory because they're geographically small. Like, I feel like that would be the kind of logic he brings to that war.
I think you're totally right, Chuck. I mean, he doesn't understand geopolitics. He doesn't at the basis level, he understands that China doesn't want the North Korea regime to topple, but that's probably also has to do with he also doesn't understand like what China represents on the geopolitical stage. He thinks of them as like back when, like in the 1970s, when he was actually going to like bodegas and there were Asian people there. That's what he knows about China.
Right. Well, his strategy in normal business life was just to threaten people with lawsuits, and so now he's really just translating that into nuclear war, in terms of foreign policy or foreign diplomacy. So maybe it's just bluster, but nuclear bluster is a new thing to have to get conditioned to, on the regular. So
well, and I think the thing that scares me the most is like, let's say that they do launch a missile near Guam or something like that, and Trump says like, well, we got to strike back. And they come to him and they say, well, if we strike North Korea, there's a good chance that they might just say like, hey, if we're going down, we're taking South Korea.
Yeah, we're taking
us.
Seoul,
Japan.
we're taking Tokyo.
Right. And Trump goes like, well, that's not my problem. Like, let's do it.
Right.
That's not a comforting
like,
thought.
Sacrifices have to be made.
As long as they're not me.
As long as they're not anything to do with
it turns out that the funniest movie ever made about nuclear holocaust, which is Dr. Strangelove, isn't even close to being as crazy as what the reality is that we're dealing with.
Right.
Well, and on the other end of the insane Trump political reality, you've got his former campaign manager, Paul Manafort, getting raided in an early morning no-knock raid by the FBI to seize evidence of criminal wrongdoing.
No-knock raid because they were pretty sure he was going to start destroying documents.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which he
that's just
he absolutely
normal.
would do that. He's not a stupid man.
Right. These are just normal witch hunt steps. This is just the next step in the baseless witch hunt. You just execute FBI no-knock raids and seize evidence. It's just all normal witch hunt procedure, guys.
Well, and the weird thing, I saw it reported today that I think the day after, or maybe within the next week after, a story aired in the National Enquirer about Paul Manafort having an affair or whatever, cheating on his wife. And that's totally a Trump move. Like that was his whole threat against Morning Joe and everything was, going to the National Enquirer with information. But yeah, they're attacking Paul Manafort pretty hard, and it's looking like they don't mind sacrificing that dude. So,
well, they already tried to distance themselves, but like he's played a very small role in the campaign, as the campaign manager for months and months.
I mean,
right.
It's not unnerving to me that they keep long knifing various White House or administration officials because they're rats, and rats eat each other in confined spaces. It's the fact that they never
Delicious.
seem to go after the hardcore neo-Nazis or straight up Nazis. They're still there. Miller's still there. Bannon's still there. Slowly building.
Gorka's still there.
Gorka is still there, and the Romanian vampire is still there, and
Yeah.
they're all slowly building nests in the sewers beneath the White House,
Yeah.
while anyone else, Reince, whatever, he doesn't matter. The last
Right.
connection to anything resembling adult supervision or GOP orthodoxy is gone. So now you just have Trump sitting alone with his 3 weird sisters, but they're all Nazi advisors. They're all sharing one eye, except the pupils is a swastika. What the fuck is going on?
Right. Oh, I mean, it's absolutely so brazen and unbelievable. I mean, you've got Trump firing everybody from the GOP establishment, literally tweeting I'm on vacation, but hey, Mitch McConnell, get back to work and pass all my bills for me.
I almost felt sorry
God.
for Mitch
If
McConnell.
Mitch McConnell goes down, I will buy everybody in the world shots. And if this somehow takes Paul Ryan down with him.
Oh.
I mean, Trump seems like the kind of guy, that's that scorched earth mentality, right? I feel like he's getting to the point now where he's so desperate that he's maybe we'll ramp up some war rhetoric, maybe we'll threaten some people, maybe we'll just dish dirt on people.
Oh my
I
God.
mean, it's like it's getting to endgame scenario, and it's only 7 months into his first term.
Right. Well, and I think an important thing to note there is that Trump supporters, they support Trump. They don't support Paul Ryan. They don't support Mitch McConnell. They don't.
Oh, they definitely don't.
They loathe the
support...
GOP establishment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, for sure.
So, I mean, if Trump is able to, there was that joke going around back in the summer of 2016 about how Trump was actually some sleeper agent for the Democrats to destroy the GOP from the inside. It's okay, this is more donut wishful thinking, but it also kind of seems to be happening. Good luck for the donuts,
accidentally
I guess.
doing that.
Well, we're gonna get
Yeah.
we're gonna get all the worst things for the stupidest reasons.
Well, right now
That's our title, by
getting-
the way.
All the worst things.
yeah, for the stupidest
welcome.
reasons. That's perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Trump thanks Putin for cutting all those U.S. diplomats.
Oh, that was amazing. Yeah.
We want to reduce our payroll.
He's thanking Putin for sending the diplomats home because now we don't have to pay them because we've been trying. He says we've been trying to cut the budget, so we don't have to pay all these salaries. But you fucking idiot, you still have to pay these people. They're still employees. They just aren't doing the job that we sent them there to do.
Yeah.
Trump's just hoping that they start leaking so he can just have an excuse to fire them all. you know?
Exactly.
Well, I mean, they will. I mean, the entire thing is a colander.
Yeah, seriously, it's like Swiss cheese on there.
Right. But again, it's Trump is just so brazenly being I don't think we should put sanctions on Russia. And then when Russia retaliates for the sanctions, he's thank you, Russia. Please, sir, may I have another?
Yeah.
It's just absolutely so brazen that Republicans are still just supporting this guy. I just don't know what they think they're getting
Well,
out
I don't
of it
think
at this
Republicans are
Well-
supporting the guy. I think that Trump voters, I think MAGA hats are supporting the guy.
Right.
I don't think Republicans, I mean, NPR, not to be outdone in the field of let's go to a fucking diner in Ohio and talk to Trump supporters and find out what's wrong with this country. NPR ran another one tonight by Scott Detrow, who I actually respect as a journalist, but god damn it, dude, work on a better project. But the Trump supporters he was talking to were I'm a little disappointed at this point. I don't think he ought to be doing some of the stuff that he's doing, which at least that's a change, that's a shift in opinion.
Right.
Well, and it's who could have seen it coming that Trump couldn't deliver on his promises, that his promises are nonsensical, contradictory, and impossible.
Well, and didn't they just come out this week with an article saying that 40% of Trump voters or Republicans would be fine with postponing the 2020 election? I mean,
oh yeah, that's
got that
always
kind
a
of
fun
support.
thing to hear.
then- yeah, they're if he needs us to do that, that we're fine with that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so far-fetched and ridiculous, but at the same time, that's the level of support.
I don't know. The
I'm
Reichstag fire
that
was.
it's only 40%. Really.
Right.
The Reichstag fire was far-fetched and ridiculous until it actually happened.
Right.
I don't know, man. I'm at this point. I'm just like, call me when he's hanging naked from a street lamp, basically.
Right.
Because the GOP has absolutely.
Dude, piano wire would cut through that guy like butter. It would be awful. It would be just the most horrific.
It would be like, have you ever cut open a Stretch Armstrong?
No.
It would be like that.
Oh.
And as I'm saying, like, the GOP has no plan for the future. They have no plan of how to deal with Trump. They're all acting as if there's never going to be elections ever again. And the Democrats are just sort of like flailing around like a dead fish. Like, sort of, maybe if we support a war.
Right.
Like, maybe if we like, reach across the aisle now. Like, now's our time to be bipartisan.
Yeah, it's like they all have Cotard syndrome. They all think they're dead. And everyone else is dead. So, which is why the only reasonable, practical move forward is a violent workers' revolution. Who's with me?
I'm in.
Let's do
there.
it.
Great.
You had me at hello.
If the choice is that or nucker war, that's an easy choice.
Come on, come together, comrades. We'll all join the local Soviet.
Yes.
It'll be great.
Workers unite.
This has been your perspective from the plains for this week.
Absolutely. Well, that was practically a high note there.
I love it.
Well,
leave
excellent. Yeah.
Love it.
We're going to leave it there.
Love it.
Oh my God! There was
Levitt.
I know we'll cut this. There was a furniture store where I grew up called Levitt's, Levitt, whose motto was literally "Love it at Levitt's."
Love it at Levitt's.
I never shopped there because
it
of
at
the
Levitt's.
schoolyard taunting.
Oh no!
Yeah, dude. I'm sorry. You already got your one title in for the episode. We're not going to use that one.
You missed. Well, you missed out on some good deals at Levitt's. But yeah, John, we can't thank you enough for being on the show. It's been great having you on here. So, where can the fans find your some of the things that you're working on, your projects, your books?
Well, I have a main site, which is weird for 2017 to actually have a website, at levittalone.com. That's LEAVITT alone.com, which I realize is a pun based on my name. And you can find me on Twitter at @levittalone, LEAVITT alone. That's usually where I am.
Possibly contributing to the confusion with the name there.
I realize I brought that on myself.
I say you just own it, man.
That's right. Well, and y'all know you can find Liquid Flannel pretty much all over the internet. You can find us at YouTube. We've got a Facebook page now. You can find us at Twitter at liquid_flannel. And don't forget to follow us individually. You can find me at Shaggy2Trope. Brendan, where can they find you?
I'm at Brendan Williams with one L.
And Matt, where are you at?
I'm at Matt the Gwait with the W.
And that's been the episode. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ben.
Bye.
Oh my God. No, man, we brought you on to be a comedian. Come on.
Yeah,
let's
absolutely.
This is go
Dance,
time.
monkey. Okay, fine.
Seriously. Turn the grinder.
Well,
No, okay, no, we can start over. We'll put that in as the sting. No.
Everything's run by white people.